This last section is going to be super short. It could be very long in dealing with UI and heads-up displays and overlays. I just want to tie this on to what we'll be doing in the workshop. Now, the last module, we picked up a coin. How can we update some sort of score on the screen? We've already looked at using buttons on the screen. So let's talk about the UI system real quick. The UI system gives us overlays, in other words, a heads-up display. It gives us some basic controls like buttons, text boxes, images, and just some really basic composite controls there. They are game objects, so if you want to use them, you can ask for references to them, just like we did previously. Using them is actually very, very, very easy. So let's go and augment what we just did with this code here. Now, when we pick up a coin, we want to increase a score on the screen. So let's go ahead and in our code here, let's create a class called score controller. And now let's create a text box on the screen. Now, everything we do for our UI system goes under game object UI. Oops, didn't want that. Game object UI. We're going to create a text. Text gives us, we get some text box here. Let me double click on there. It's all the way down there. Now notice with the UI system, you get this weird overlay here. It's because you're working in two different spaces here, right? There's our scene, and this represents our UI. This is not how you're going to see it at runtime. They're just trying to merge one view into serving two purposes, designing a UI and viewing your scene. The UI by default will be visible no matter where you are, so it doesn't make sense to show it on your screen. That's why they give you this weird interface here. Now our score, though, we're going to call it score, and we're going to just, we'll say score. We'll keep it just like that to start. And let's bring this to our top middle. So Shift Alt top middle. There we go. Now our fonts, we can use TrueType fonts or OpenType fonts you can download on the net. By default, you only get like one built-in font, Arial. We're going to use that, but you can just download for free fonts, drag and drop into Unity, and use them as well. That's why you don't see them out of the box. You must bring in the TTF or OTF file here. Now I'm going to create this to be a little bit bigger. We're going to have to use this scaling tool here, the last tool in the toolbar, and make this a little bit bigger so we can see score. Maybe, you know what, let's drag this to our top left. All right. Now in our score controller, let's go ahead and create a method here called public void update score. Oops, let me fix this. And in here, let's just create a public variable, which is going to represent our text box. Public text. We're going to have to bring in the namespace for that. Public text, and we're going to call this score. And that is using Unity, using Unity engine.ui. And that's our text. And what we're going to do is, when we update our score, we're going to create another text, another integer variable, public int score. Actually, we're going to call the score text, and we're going to keep this called score. All right, when we update score, we're just going to say score text.text is equal to score plus score.toString. We are just going to change its value. That's all we're going to do. We're going to save that. We're going to create an empty game object here called the same thing, score controller. I compile our code, score controller, and take our code and drop it on the score controller. And now we need to take our score text box right here and drag it over to hook up this reference right there. Now at runtime, this class knows about that text box. We just exposed a public variable of type text, and we just dragged and dropped the reference. So that will be there at runtime. Now, the last thing that we need to do is let's create a new tag called score controller. We've created the tag. It's now there in the text box. I just add tag. We're going to assign that tag to score controller. And now what we can do is in our code for our coin, we can say game object.find game object with tag. We'll call this score controller. Now we're going to get the component on it, which is called score controller as well. So that's going to find the game object and get us a reference to its score. Score.update score. And now we can call a function that exists right here. Actually, what we should really do is say score plus plus to increment our score. All right, that should be all the code we need. We're going to get our score controller and get a reference to it. Let's paste this in here, make sure I typed it correctly here. All right, save this all. And I think we should be good to go here. Last thing we might want to do is change the color of our text. Make this maybe a little more visible on the screen. The red. Let's give that a try. I hit the score. There we go. Score's 1. If I take that coin, double click on it. Now if I duplicate it, and I have 2 of them there, let's go ahead and click on run. They both, when they're hit, will find an instance of score controller and call that function on there. Score controller tracks the score. I hit the second one, score's 2. That's it. 2 classes, very little code. We have a public variable of the text box. We drag and drop in Unity. And then secondly, we just call into this class from coin physics when we're good to go. Very common operation in 2D and 3D games, and we're going to see this inside of the lab as well. And that's it. Hopefully this gave you a lot of the tidbits that you need for development that we can really use across not just the workshop that we're going to do, but also many different games. They're all bite-sized pieces, little UI components. There's still a ton to learn, I'm still always learning daily about Unity. But hopefully this gives you some of the basic ideas of how to write some simple code, maybe find some other snippets from the net, incorporate it into your game, understand how code fits into your game, how to use Visual Studio. They're all pretty simple concepts here. So always reach out to me if you ever have any questions. You can find me on Twitter @AdamTuliper and give us any feedback. We love the feedback. We love doing these events. And good luck and hope to see you online soon. Take care.